see you here.
Thank you. It is good to be with you.
You had a good break yesterday.
Yes, and good food as well.
Wow. Well done.
Here we stand on this side, another one.
So it's called hybrids from different parts of Southeast Asia. Roundedness. Pepleonanthe cookeriana is a species from this region.
What do you think of the work Madam Vice President?
Oh, it's beautiful, and I'm honored to receive it.
We go one more step for the process. Please go ahead. Thank you.
It has a birth
Oh,
certificate.
the birth certificate. Well, I'm pleased to welcome this orchid into the world here.
Very happy to have the chance to do this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your Honour, please join us this way.
We live in that way.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Joint press conference between Singapore and the United States of America. May I now welcome the Vice President of the United States of America and Prime Minister of Singapore. Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee, will now address us. Prime Minister, please.
Vice President Kamala Harris, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. I welcome Vice President Harris to Singapore. We had an excellent discussion this morning and reaffirmed the robust and enduring partnership between Singapore and the United States. I also expressed our appreciation for the U.S.'s active role in the Asia-Pacific and especially in Southeast Asia, and our shared support for a stable, rules-based order in the region based on international law, where all countries can both cooperate and compete peacefully with one another and prosper together. The Vice President's visit follows Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's visit here just a month ago. It emphasizes the U.S. administration's commitment to this region and shows that the U.S. has both strategic and economic stakes in Southeast Asia. We value the U.S. renewing its ties with friends and partners here, and especially with Singapore. Economic cooperation between the U.S. and Singapore is dynamic and flourishing. Our FTA with the U.S., signed in 2004, was the U.S.'s first with an Asian country. Since then, our bilateral trade, which is well-balanced and mutually beneficial, has more than doubled. And Singapore is also the second largest Asian investor in the United States, with direct investment stock of $65 billion US. Our investments in the U.S., together with American exports to Singapore, support over 250,000 American jobs. Today, Singapore is home to nearly 5,500 U.S. companies. The U.S. is Singapore's largest foreign direct investor, and the FDI stock of the U.S. in Singapore is $315 billion US. It's more than U.S. investments in China, India, and South Korea combined. On security and defense, the U.S. has played an important and constructive role in the region for over 70 years. Singapore is a major security cooperation partner of the U.S. and we have consistently supported a strong U.S. presence in the region through our words and actions. Our two countries cooperate well on transnational issues, including terrorism, cybersecurity, and counter-proliferation. Our security, intelligence, and law enforcement agencies hold regular dialogues. Singapore participated in the International Security Assistance Force, or ISAF, in Afghanistan, and we were later the first Southeast Asian country to contribute personnel and assets to the global coalition to defeat ISIS, which was in Iraq. The U.S. is a partner nation in Singapore's newly established multilateral counterterrorism information facility. We discussed these issues with Vice President Harris, and on Afghanistan specifically, I mentioned to Vice President that we knew that the U.S. was conducting an evacuation operation of refugees from Afghanistan, and Singapore would like to offer to the U.S. the use of the RSAF's, Republic of Singapore Air Forces, Airbus 330 multi-role tanker and transporter aircraft in order to help with the airlift. Our defense cooperation goes back many decades. Singapore has one of the largest foreign training presences in the U.S. We deeply appreciate the U.S.'s support for our training detachments in Arizona at Luke Air Force Base and in Idaho at Mountain Home. 2 years ago, we renewed the 1990 Memorandum of Understanding, which provides the U.S. military with access to Singapore's air and naval bases. Vice President Harris will be visiting Changi Naval Base later this afternoon, and there I hope she'll see how Singapore has supported the U.S. military presence and its defense engagements in the region. We've hosted rotational deployment of U.S. aircraft and Navy ships, and also including littoral combat ships, such as the USS Tulsa, which the Vice President will be visiting. Our bilateral cooperation takes place in the context of regional and multilateral cooperation efforts. Singapore appreciates the U.S. participation in ASEAN and regional forums like the ARF, the ADMM+, and APEC. We work together at these forums, reflecting our shared commitment to multilateralism to tackle regional and global issues like climate change. On this 55th anniversary of U.S.-Singapore diplomatic relations, I'm happy that we are embarking on new areas of partnership. We concluded 3 agreements between our cyber, defense, and finance industries, agencies. Singapore and U.S. are also launching a climate partnership, and we are also pleased with the joint smart city capacity building initiatives. We're elevating the U.S.-Singapore Collaboration Platform MOU to a new partnership for growth and innovation, and we welcome the U.S.-Singapore Supply Chain Dialogue to work together to strengthen supply chain resilience. On pandemic preparedness, we will pursue collaboration on genome sequencing and epidemic intelligence, which will speed up identification of COVID-19 variants as well as emerging disease threats and augment regional preparedness for current and future academics. We are also happy to see both sides cooperating on space, which is the next frontier. It's a substantial agenda of deliverables which will enhance our partnership, and I'm confident that our long-standing and multifaceted bilateral relationship will continue to strengthen year by year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Madam Vice President, please.
Thank you, Prime Minister Lee. You have been a long-standing friend of the United States. You have been a counselor and a friend to many of my predecessors who have talked with me about the friendship and the history of work together. And I was honored to be a part of that tradition with this visit today and our extensive conversations about many topics. So thank you, and thank you for the warm welcome. And I am here because the United States has a long-standing and enduring relationship with Singapore in the context of Southeast Asia and in the context of the United States being a member of the Indo-Pacific region, and we take that membership seriously. It is a partnership that we have with Singapore and Southeast Asia that relies on the priorities of the United States that are both priorities that relate to our security as well as our economic well-being. And increasingly, certainly the pandemic has highlighted the importance of working together as partners on the issue of global health. The conversation that we had today was also in many ways defined by what I think we all understand to be a new era that we're embarking on. A new era is defined by many of the issues that I mentioned, the issue of a pandemic and global health, the issue of the climate crisis, which we spoke extensively about, the issue of cybersecurity. And on these issues, as well as the traditional issues that we have partnered with Singapore on, we are looking forward to strengthening this relationship and our collaboration and partnership. And today, we are in Singapore to stress and reaffirm our enduring relationship to this country and in this region, and to reinforce a shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific region, and to reaffirm our mutual interests in peace and stability in Southeast Asia. Prime Minister Lee and I had a productive conversation on how our two nations can partner together to fulfill this vision. In that context, Prime Minister, I thank you for the very generous offer that you've made to assist the United States in our evacuations from Afghanistan, and we look forward to following up on that discussion. On the issues that we discussed, I'll start with the issue of global health, because it is one of the dominant issues that is impacting all nations. And on that issue, we discussed the importance of working together to end this pandemic, but also to prevent future pandemics. Singapore's approach to managing the pandemic has been commendable, but we all must do more to not only end the current pandemic, but to invest in what we know will be more. From day one, President Biden has been clear about the importance of vaccinating people in the United States against COVID-19 and our commitment to being an arsenal of vaccines for the world. That is why we have provided millions of vaccine doses to countries within Southeast Asia. And Singapore has been very generous in the way that it has contributed to the work that needs to be done in this region and around the world. As the Delta variant threatens communities, the Prime Minister and I discussed how the United States and Singapore can partner to increase the capacity of Southeast Asia to identify new COVID variants and boost regional preparedness. Secondly, we discussed our partnership's importance to the prosperity of our two countries and the broader region. This pandemic has had a profound impact on economies and a profound impact on families and workers, and has exposed what many knew before but have been highlighted through the pandemic, which is the vulnerability of our supply chains. In America, we all remember the early days of the pandemic when folks couldn't figure out where they could get a mask, where they could get PPEs. And that was because of the shortage of basic goods around the globe. Supply chains, without any question, are critical to ensuring that businesses can source the materials they need and get products to market and enable people to buy these products. For example, semiconductor chips. They power everything from smartphones to laptops to cars. And if we're not producing enough semiconductors as a world, as a globe, our automobile factories in the United States will be impacted as they've been. And it will impact then families and consumers. You just ask anybody who's thinking about trying to buy a new car or a used car, and it is more difficult than it has been in a long time because, of course, supply chain issues impact production lines and impact goods getting to market. So working together with partners like Singapore on strengthening supply chains is critical in not only getting goods to the folks who need them, but keeping Americans working and on the job, and ensuring Americans can provide for their families. So that is why tomorrow I will be meeting with key business leaders here in Singapore to discuss what more we can do together in this region of the world with private and public sectors, including our own in the United States, to shore up supply lines and supply chains. And that is why the Prime Minister and I agreed to launch a dialogue on how our two countries can better work together to strengthen supply chain resiliency in this region. Third, on the issue of security, a long-standing source and reason for the priority that our two countries have placed in our partnership. I reaffirmed in our meeting the United States' commitment to working with our allies and partners around the Indo-Pacific to uphold the rules-based international order and freedom of navigation, including in the South China Sea. Later today, as the Prime Minister mentioned, I will visit the United States naval ship docked in Shanghai Naval Base, a clear symbol of the strong security cooperation between our two countries and a symbol of America's commitment to regional security. The Prime Minister and I also agreed that the United States and Singapore must expand cyber security cooperation to address growing threats and to protect our countries from cyber attacks, for example, on financial institutions and on our defense establishments. Turning to the issue of values, the United States is deeply committed to advancing respect for human rights at home and abroad. In our meeting today, the Prime Minister and I discussed the crisis in Burma and the role the international community must play in helping the people of Burma restore democracy to their country. And lastly, during our meeting, we spoke about the need to coordinate our efforts to address climate and the climate crisis. I no longer call it climate change, Prime Minister, climate crisis, as evidenced by the UN report that recently came out. As two of the world's leaders in the financial sector, the United States and Singapore can work together on sustainable finance in this regard, and that is why today our countries are launching a new climate partnership to create standards for sustainable financing, to address financial sector climate risk, and to mobilize private capital for climate mitigation and adaptation. So those are just some of the areas we touched upon today, reflective of the breadth and the depth of the partnership between the United States and Singapore. And as I said at the beginning of my remarks, our administration is committed to enduring engagement in Singapore, into Southeast Asia and the Indo-Pacific, and I look forward, Prime Minister, for continuing and strengthening our relationship for years to come. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice President.